Hello and welcome to another episode of Scott Reads Comics. Today I'll be covering Legends number 5 with a brief dive into Superman number 3, a Legends crossover book. Getting started with Legends number 5 here, we have another fantastic John Byrne cover, and we see this is an Ostrander Wayne Byrne Kessel production. Publishing date is March 87. This is number 5 in our 6-part miniseries, so we're getting close to the end of our coverage of Legends. Shazam / Captain Marvel is on the cover. So if you'll recall our previous issues of Legends, we haven't really seen Shazam live since issue 1, where he was suckered into believing that he had killed the Macro Man, and so transformed back into Billy Batson, and has been reluctant to again assume the mantle of Shazam because he felt like he was a murderer. Also on the cover, we see some various empty costumes of some of our cast from the series. Guy Gardner, the Green Lantern, Blue Beetle, Flash, Changeling, Black Canary, and even Superman's costume here in the foreground. So let us dive in, see where it takes us. So we start here. The city is in flames. In certain sections, it is virtually deserted now, which makes the solitary figures stumbling through the ruins a most unusual sight. So we see Billy Batson here in the city that has been the victim of rampant looting and destruction because of the influence of G. Gordon Godfrey. This is a good time for our creative team to catch us up on what's happened in the previous issues, if this is our first issue in the series. And again, we see Billy remembering the terrible events that led to the death of Macro Man, a total setup job from Darkseid and his minions, Dr. Bedlam chief among them. So here we see Billy, again lamenting, and the silhouette of a now familiar figure, Lisa, catches up to him. "Why did you run away from my house like that? What's wrong with you, Billy?" More than I can ever explain, Lisa. Please, for your own sake, just go away. Leave me alone." So Billy doesn't want to get Lisa any more involved in his problems. But suddenly the two have stumbled upon an anti-superhero riot. And Lisa, because all children are immune to the effects of Godfrey's powerful influence and charisma, supernatural influence and charisma, she runs up to try and tell the crowd that, superheroes aren't bad and they're doing the wrong thing by protesting and engaging in all this destruction. And she is struck by debris and knocked unconscious. And that crystallizes in Billy Batson's mind what he has to do. "That old wizard gave me a sacred trust when he gave me the power. And it's time I started living up to my obligations, come what may." And then he utters the word, since the first issue we haven't heard, Shazam. And Captain Marvel is back, and he looks amazing on this splash page, which gives us both our title and our creative team for this issue. "Let's slip the dogs of war." And John Ostrander is our plotter, Len Wein scripter, John Byrne penciler, Carl Kesser inker, Steve Haney is our letterer, Tom Ziuko is back as colorist. If you recall, Carl Gafford had spelled him on issue 4, and Mike Gold remains our editor. And Captain Marvel is again, the world's mightiest mortal, is back. And he quickly realizes that this crowd was responsible for Lisa being knocked unconscious, and so he's going to go and try and quell them. "People, please, you don't know what you're doing." "Oh, yes, we do. We're gonna..." And then suddenly they all freeze as they're about to surround him. They obviously couldn't have hurt him, but it would have been difficult for him to extricate himself from their midst without hurting them. But he's saved from that task by some unearthly power, and we'll recognize here the gloved hand of Dr. Fate. And this is going to be a theme through this issue here. Captain Marvel, you are needed, and he is gone. Nice use of just an open panel with this brief caption, and he is gone, with this white space here, to show that Captain Marvel has been whisked away to some as yet undisclosed place and for an as yet undisclosed reason. So we'll move on and see where that leads us to. Meanwhile, in Star City, we have Black Canary, who is still defying the president's executive order for superheroes to remain off the streets and on the sidelines. She never bent to that order and has continued to fight crime in Star City. Hi guys, care to surrender? Black Canary, that's the name, don't strain it, and watch where you point those laser guns. So she's fighting this group of characters called the Laser League. I had not heard of them before this issue, and I'm not sure if they've appeared before or since, but here they are, and she is unleashing her sonic scream on them and her considerable martial arts powers. And as she puts them down, we see the cape of our now familiar figure who's going to be through this issue, Dr. Fate. Black Canary, you are needed. Huh? And she is gone. So again, very nice theme running through this issue as Fate is obviously gathering heroes. For what purpose, we will find out. Okay, this sequence we'll spend a little more time on because there's a little inside baseball stuff going on here that I'll get into. But let me just read through it real quick here. This is a fun one. While in Los Angeles, he's crazy. Let's get out of here. That's right, you insignificant insects. Run from me. Flee from the fury of Sunspot. The ultimate power is finally mine, as it always should have been. From this day forward, I will show you all how power is meant to be used. I will remake this sorry world in my own image. I will, who? And we see a familiar green energy hand reaching down, tapping our newfound supervillain on the shoulder, and it is Guy Gardner. Excuse me, Screw Loose, but the name's Guy Gardner, the one true Green Lantern. And when it comes to wielding power, you ain't seen nothing yet. So here we have our villain, Sunspot's not having any of that. He is incredibly powerful here with energy wielding and powers and super strength as he lifts up this giant fuel truck. Don't mock me, man. You've no idea what atrocities I've committed to gain this power. And now that I have it, nothing will ever take it from me. Do tell. Hey, Arnold Schwarzenegger, no, you've stolen his act. And so as Gardner's engaging in this repartee with him, his power ring is secretly kind of reaching up here, and it's going to puncture a nice hole in this fuel tank. I'm in control. I am always in control. That's how I keep the power from. And then suddenly he's embarrassed by this oil pouring down on his face. I warned you, Ringslinger. Warned you not to mock me. Now you will pay the price of all who dare to challenge me. Complete and utter destruction. And you think, wow, what's going on? You can see great use of scale by Byrne Kessel here, and a great word effect here by our letterer Steve Haney as he smashes the truck down where Guy Gardner was standing. And you can just see the tiny figure of Sunspot there as he does it. Quack-hoom. But Guy Gardner is nonplussed. Cute stretch. A major waste of time and effort, but cute. And here's Gardner goes on. You know, you remind me of several other ultimate power types I know, my so-called fellow Green Lanterns. All of them like you, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Apologies to Faulkner there. Gardner uses his ring, wields it, grabs him, lifts him into the air. He can't get any leverage. He's just hanging there, held by the lantern's power. Nobody makes a fool of Sunspot. Don't you know who I am? What I am? I wield the ultimate power. The power to create a new universe. Remember that, folks. As we turn the page, he unleashes one of these blasts on Guy Gardner, and Guy Gardner effortlessly blocks it, And then Sunspot makes a very foolish mistake here. Once I free myself from this stupid green shackle, I'm going to, and then he blows his own foot off. Here, just great action from our art team here. Gardner puts a energy bandage of sorts on Sunspot's leg to contain the injury, and he also contains his left hand, which is seemingly where his power comes from. And then suddenly, we see here in the background the legs and the feet of Dr. Fate, and then we hear his voice here from off panel and see a bit of his helmet. Green Lantern, you are needed. Huh? And he is gone. All right, quickly, before we move on. John Byrne left Marvel to come to DC. Prior to leaving Marvel, John Byrne had a number of falling outs with individuals, one of them being Jim Shooter. So, obviously, anyone who's seen pictures of Jim Shooter, Sunspot is essentially a cartooned version of Jim Shooter. He's tall, he kind of has Jim Shooter's hair and pockmarked face, his elongated face, some of those distinctive Shooter's facial features, and the dialogue gives it away as well. This is Byrne, in the words of the cartoonist kayfabe guys, cutting promos on Jim Shooter. And really the thing that's the most telltale giveaway is this line here: I wield the ultimate power, the power to create a new universe. Jim Shooter had just created or been engineered the creation of the new universe titles at Marvel. It was a debacle. They lingered on somnambulistically like zombies for a few years, but they all ultimately failed, and the new universe was a giant failure, in spite of some inspired creative efforts by the people on the ground making the books. It just didn't catch on. They didn't have any bite with fans. So they failed. And so this is Byrne kind of making fun of Jim Shooter. And obviously, John Ostrander and Len Wein were playing along with the joke. So kind of a fun inside baseball sort of shot at Jim Shooter. So we'll move on. Guy Gardner is collected by Dr. Fate. The same thing is going to happen here in Chicago, where we're now familiar. Blue Beetle's city of choice is Chicago. So he's there. Just great shots of Beetle and the Bug here. Again, I come back to the idea that they were kind of setting him up maybe to be DC's Spider-Man in a way, even though he had no powers, but he had some of those elements in play. Very good cast around him too, as we'll delve into a couple of Blue Beetle issues on the show at some point, because some of them are really fun. Here he's still defying the president's order, considers himself kind of an outlaw now. He's hanging on the side of this building by this drain pipe, and we see this woman, it's a peeping Tom, police, whoops, sorry about that, lady, bye now. Great, so much for what little is left of my reputation. Now they're gonna call me a pervert. Cute tush though, he thinks to himself. And off panel, we see that familiar word balloon belonging to Dr. Fate. Blue Beetle, you are needed. Huh? And he is gone. Gotham City. Batman is trying to puzzle out, and he's getting closer to figuring out what's going on. Great shot of Gotham City here. Batman perched on this rooftop, but just a great shot looking up just from a ground to sky perspective here. Awesome, distinctive water tower there. Gotham City is effectively, in my mind, New York, even though DC has both Gotham City and New York, and it's a little geographically vague where one is in relation to the other. But again, great depiction of a city skyline at night here. So Batman's winging around the city here via one of his bat lines. There's a lot more to this than the obvious. Something unreal, something unnatural. And it's time I found out exactly what that something is. If I could just sort out where I've seen Godfrey before, I could. So Batman's about to put things together when suddenly Dr. Fate shows up. Batman, you are needed. And he is gone. While in New York City, so in New York City, we have a riot going on. And we see the warhounds are now in play. And they're working with these mobs. And if we recall from last issue, Flash and Changeling had just stopped Captain Boomerang's rampage when Boomerang realized that three of them had a bigger problem, and it was this mob descending on them, and they were about to engage in some mob violence against the three characters. But they are obviously not without their defenses, and Flash begins to systematically disarm them at super speed. Boomerang has no such compunctions about a nonviolent solution to the problem. That humanitarian streak will one day be the death of you, flashy old son. But Captain Boomerang has his own way of handling this mob and those oversized robot dingoes. Namely, a couple of well-placed bomberangs. So he actually, in great action sequence here from Byrne and Kessel, he sends a enfilade of boomerangs out, and they come flying into the sides, the flanks of this warhound, and explode its outer shell. And it's going to reveal something very disturbing here. Holy, there were people inside that thing, Changeling says as he flies over in the form of a bird. And it's a miracle that they're all still breathing. Well, that's a mistake I can easily correct the next time, if they don't back off and leave us alone. Got me, mates? And he, Boomerang, nonplussed by that, sends out a few more boomerangs, crashing into the warhounds. And the warhound speaks, actually. No, Gordon Godfrey has shown us the truth. You are a danger that must be destroyed forever. And Boomerang says, well, can't say I didn't warn you, Kaba, and the boomerangs go flying and explode in the face of the warhound. The crowd does not like what they're seeing, and they react. Monster, you can't defy us forever. You can't escape us all. Get him! And Boomerang decides discretion is the better part of valor and begins to run, but his own costume betrays him as they grab him by his scarf and pull him in among them. He's almost crowd surfing here toward the center of the crowd where they're going to capture him. Take him to Godfrey. Godfrey will know what to do. Cripes, will you? Look at that. I don't believe this, Flash says. It's like something out of the Dark Ages. And Changing goes on, Monty Python was right, pal. No one expects the Spanish Inquisition. So they're about to resolve to go and rescue Boomerang, some maybe against their better judgment, but they're going to do it anyway because they're heroes. But before they can, Dr. Fate arrives to collect them. Flash, Changeling, you are needed, and they are gone. Here we have a sequence where Superman's again at the White House. We see Reagan's there with his Vice President, George H.W. Bush. And Superman asks him, what are you going to do about it? Well, I tried to send in the military, but that didn't work, since most of the soldiers quickly defected over to Godfrey's side. And now we've started to receive reports of various superheroes suddenly disappearing all around the country. That could be the work of Darkseid, sir. He snatched me earlier today. So here we have our timing. If you remember in the last issue, one of the things that happened was Darkseid unleashed his Omega effect on Superman through his Stargate, and we wondered what it was going to do to Superman. Well, this issue explains that, and I'll get into it in a second as soon as I get through Legends number 5 here. We can see that Superman is back, so he obviously survives whatever happened in Superman number 3. And we'll go through it quickly here when we're done with Legends number 5. But we can see as Superman is speaking, fate materializes behind him. A logical theory, but quite incorrect. Dr. Fate? I go where duty calls me. I do what must be done. And Reagan stands up. Sir, your actions are in direct opposition to my executive order. Unfortunate, Mr. President, but I serve a higher authority. The fate of your entire world is at stake here, and fate is my province. Superman, you are needed. What a brilliant, just kind of long, focused panel on Fate's eyes within the helmet of Naboo. Kent Nelson's eyes within the helmet of Naboo. Just an awesomely rendered panel here. And they are gone. So he collects Superman as well. So now, we're back in Metropolis here. And this is the aforementioned Godfrey, G. Gordon Godfrey, disciple of Darkseid, new god himself, supernaturally powerful demagogue. The battle goes well, my friends. All across this great land, your brothers and sisters are taking up arms against our common enemy. All across America, the cry has gone out. Enough. Long enough have we lived in the shadow of the so-called superhero. So, working through Godfrey, Darkseid is engineering the destruction of the legends and the heroes that have protected and inspired the United States. And here, a sacrificial lamb is about to present itself. Behold, my friends, and see what it is that opposes us. Behold the face of our enemy. I'm warning you, Cobbers. You'll be sorry if you don't let me go. It's Captain Boomerang. The crowd has brought him to Godfrey. You can't do this time, Cobber. I got me rights. Ah, yes, Godfrey says, the first bastion of the truly evil, to seek sanctuary among the very rights he has struggled to destroy. And what shall we do with this sorrowful sinner, my friends? Hang him, burn him, feed him to the war hounds. So Boomerang realizes he is in deep trouble. You'll all be sorry, you will. I'm not alone in this. I got friends, and if they know what's good for them, they'll get me out of this now. So Boomerang, while he may be physically overmatched at this point, is extremely canny in terms of his knowledge of how to survive. He knows the cameras are on this crowd. Godfrey draws cameras. So he knows the media is getting all this. And this is a secret coded message for Task Force X and Suicide Squad to get him out of this, or he's going to start talking. Enough of this ranting. Take him away. We have more important things to concern us now. A government unwilling to enforce the will of its people has lost its authority to govern. Onward then, my friends, to Washington. So he's going to take the mobs with him to Washington itself, so we'll revisit him there later. But Boomerang was correct. He is being observed remotely. Well, now what? Rick Flag says. I don't like this, Colonel. Not one little bit, Amanda Waller says. Boomerang's threats were obviously aimed at us, and their implication couldn't be more clear. Either we go out and rescue him, or he'll blow the lid off Task Force X. And that is something we cannot allow. So what do you suggest we do about it, Mrs. Waller? And I love Waller's ruthlessness here. It's going to be something that's going to be one of her hallmarks moving forward. What do you think I'm suggesting, Colonel? Either you and the others rescue Captain Boomerang, or you eliminate him. Whichever seems easier. And I will not allow Task Force X to be compromised. So Flag is shocked. You're talking murder here, Amanda, and I won't allow that. I'm talking national defense, Flag, and you may not have a choice. I leave the final decision up to you, Colonel. You know what the stakes are. I trust you'll know what to do. And Flag ultimately realizes that Waller is correct. She's right, damn her. When the time comes, I'll do whatever I have to protect this project. Whatever I have to do, God help me. So now let's shift back to Washington this time and the Lincoln Memorial. Time in the series is kind of never really fully realistically spelled out. So how long did it take for Godfrey and his crowds and his mobs to get to DC? How much time has passed? And I believe in a previous sequence in the book we saw Gotham City at night, and then we went to New York City where Boomerang was captured by the mobs, and it seemed like it was daylight. It doesn't really matter. The series works, the continuity works. It's just an aside on that. Just something I noticed going through this again. So here they are gathered at the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, and Godfrey's about to be confronted by a power that he did not account for. From this day forward, all men are created truly equal, answerable to only one authority, the true authority. And we know who that authority is, don't we, Godfrey? What? You must be mad, masked man, coming here into the presence of your enemies. We are legion, and you are alone. So we see Dr. Fate floating down to stand next to Godfrey, confronting him. Wrong, Godfrey. Fate is never alone. Along the twisted paths I walk, others are ever at my side, and in spirit, if not in fact. They are those who serve the cause of justice. And we see what could be, perhaps, the formation of a new Justice League here, the core of it at least. It's a bit of a tease. We'll see where it goes. And Guy Gardner says, "Greetings, Gordon. Looks like it's finally party time." And Fate continues, "And believe me, Godfrey, they are legion too." So we have Superman, really looking cool, standing next to Shazam, Blue Beetle, Flash, Changeling, Batman stoic in the background, and Black Canary standing in the middle. And before I flip the page, we see a house ad for another of our series coming out of Legends. From Legends to the all-new Justice League, now in his own 4-part miniseries by Roy and Dan Thomas and Tom Mandrake, Shazam, The New Beginning. So I had forgotten Tom Mandrake did the art for this limited series that Roy and Dan Thomas did. So if I manage to track those down in a dollar bin, I will definitely cover them because I'm a huge fan of Tom Mandrake's art. And here we have another ad. This one, a subscription ad for all the new titles that are going to be available post Crisis on Infinite Earths, post Legend. So very cool stuff here. And meanwhile, back on Apocalypse, we can see through the now familiar Visa screen, Darkseid is observing events. Behold, stranger, the curtain rises on the final act of our little drama. There is still time for you to concede, you know. Never, Darkseid. I stand by the principles I've supported from the very beginning. The heroic ideal is too much a part of humanity ever to be truly eradicated. And then they go back and forth some more, and Darkseid finishes with, to preserve their ideals, your heroes will either have to battle the very people they profess to protect, or else allow themselves to be destroyed by them. Either way, stranger, Darkseid wins. Great shot of the hell pits on Apocalypse here from space. Very cool perspective and a cool way to dissolve from Apocalypse to our final scene in this issue. And in Gotham City, so we see Robin here watching restively from his hospital bed in the private hospital where he's recovering from being beaten by the mob. And he decides he's had enough. G. Gordon Godfrey's insanity is threatening all of us, adults and kids alike. And while this is one kid who isn't just going to lay back and let others fight his battles for him, especially now, not when this kid's also Robin, the boy wonder. I've got to do what I can to help, even if it kills me. And this final shot here of Darkseid's laughing head. And back on desolate Apocalypse, Darkseid's humble hunger dogs hear the shuddering echo of their master's mocking laughter and pull their shutters tight against the coming storm. Next month, finale, be here. Okay, solid issue, setting us up for our conclusion in issue 6. And here we have our letters page. Mike Gould in a little missive here at the beginning, urging folks to keep writing even though the last issue of Legends is coming up, saying that some of their letters could be run in Suicide Squad or the new Flash title or the new Justice League title or even the Shazam miniseries. So again, it's cool. Love letter columns, and one of the great things I miss about new comics, and really one of the reasons I don't read new comics very much. But yeah, a lot of positive feedback here that they're showing. And then our next issue box, our next month, Wonder Woman, the Justice League, Billy Batson makes a decision, and the public responds. All this and more in the conclusion to Legends. So we haven't seen Wonder Woman yet in Legends, but issue 6 is going to have her debut in the series. And quickly, we saw that Superman, when he was talking to President Reagan, had mentioned that he had been snatched by Darkseid. This is that story, real quick. I thought it'd be fun to just quickly run through it. Again, I can't and don't want to cover all of the Legends crossover books, but some of them are cool. And this one's particularly neat because it's an early issue of the new Superman relaunch title from Byrne, and this one is inked by Terry Austin. So it's great. We're not going to read through it all, but it's just really a feast for the eyes here as Byrne and Austin are. I'm not going to say it's vintage Byrne, but it's really solid Byrne, and Austin is arguably his greatest inker. So this is John Byrne, writer, penciler, Terry Austin, inker, John Costanza, letterer, Tom Ziuko, colorist, and Andrew Helfer is our writer. Superman created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster. And this title is Legends from the Dark Side. So we open up with a little sequence where Godfrey isn't just always out riling the crowds. Here he is meeting with a very important member of the media, Lois Lane. And he ushers her into his well-appointed abode, and they're talking, and Lois thinks to herself, gotta hand it to the man, he's persuasive. I have to keep reminding myself how much I disagree with his position. So that's his power working on people. Now, Lois is extremely strong-willed, so she's able to resist, but most people, once they're caught up in a mob, cannot resist Godfrey's power. And now flash to our splash page here with Superman in his guise as Clark Kent running from something. What's he running from? These two beams. This is Darkseid's Omega effect that's pursuing him. Really awesome sequence here as Superman's moving through the crowds as fast as he can without arousing too much suspicion. Again, he's in his guise as Clark Kent. The Omega effect goes around the civilian because it's very singly targeted on Superman. So he is trying to evade these beams. And so he does it there, but he's going to jump down into the sewers here to escape them. So here he thinks to himself, with any kind of luck, I may be able to lose it in the maze of sewers beneath the streets of Metropolis, assuming it can even come down after me. But yes, they do follow him. So now he's moving. He ducks underneath him. They go through his coat. And he runs into these sewer workers. Then the beams double back. And to protect them, he pushes the sewer worker down, not realizing that the beams aren't going to hurt them. And they hit him. And here we have Apocalypse and Darkseid. Great sequence here. Love that green background here and just Darkseid's head in shadow. What's this? I sent forth my Omega beams to bring Superman to Apocalypse. Instead, I am delivered this cringing mortal. Stranger, is this your doing? I sent your meddling hand in this. Then your senses lead you awry, Darkseid. I am here only as an observer. You know that. So, I gotta stop. And I have to say, this absolutely strains all credulity. There is no way that Darkseid could not know that this is Superman. And it's one of the reasons I'm not a huge Superman fan is just the utter ridiculousness of him putting the glasses on, I'm Clark Kent now, and no one knowing. It's, yeah, a lot of great Superman stories out there. I've enjoyed them. Never been a regular fan of Superman because of this particular aspect of his character. And for Darkseid, who incidentally is incredibly well drawn here by Byrne and Austin, for Darkseid and all his omnipotence and power to not realize that, to me, just is It's beyond belief. But I digress. So here he grabs Clark Kent, who is Superman, who's pretending that it hurts. So Darkseid grabs him, lifts him up, and somehow isn't able to tell that he's a superhumanly indestructible being by doing that. And he flings him out the window. Now, maybe you could argue that the stranger is doing something to cloud Darkseid's perceptions or whatever. I mean, we can get into those sorts of deep geek arguments about this, but ultimately, for me, it's a story device that fails. So Superman pretends to fall, pretends to hit the ground, and oh, look, his glasses are still on. Wow, well, lucky that. If they'd have fallen off, then everyone would have known that Clark Kent was actually Superman, but luckily they're still on. So here he is overwhelmed by hunger dogs. And he just, in the midst of the crowd, he changes into Superman. I guess they tear all his clothes off or something, and he's got the Superman costume on underneath. So one great thing about this next sequence here is you get a beautifully drawn sequence of the origin of New Genesis and Apocalypse by Byrne in Austin. And this page here is totally awesome. And it kind of sets us up for a few years down the road when Byrne comes back and does his version of New Gods in Jack Kirby's Fourth World. And that's awesome as well. Those issues, even though they're latter Byrne, are well worth looking at too. The great sequence here. We see our main New Gods cast members. Miracle and Barda, the Forever People, Highfather, Orion, Light Ray, Metron. And then we see our cast of bad guys on Apocalypse. Of course, Darkseid, Desaad, Kalibak, who we haven't really seen in this series. Dr. Bedlam, Kanto, Vermin Vundabar, Granny, and Glorious Godfrey in his full New God raiment there. So Superman realizes he needs to get himself off of Apocalypse. He's trying to evade these parademons. And so he's going to grab some old clothes here and dress as a local. And I can emerge looking more like a resident of Armageddon. Nothing I can do about my size, but luckily some of these slum denizens are pretty big. So Darkseid comes on an air, or I should say Superman comes into this slum area and decides to intercede here. Of course, that's not really much of a dilemma at all, is it? A life is in danger, and protecting life, even non-human life, is what being Superman is all about. So he steps forward to act, and he tears this fence up, and he's going to free this woman. And she thinks to herself as she's able to get away, he's magnificent. Where could he have come from? Can he be part of can he be some part of the plan? No matter. The shock troops are distracted. I have to take the chance to slip away, or everything I've established will be forfeit. Okay, so she gets away, and these guards decide that this unknown Armageddon denizen is potentially too much of a threat, so they call this pacifier character. And again, great page here of Byrne and this time Austin just unleashing their art skills on this character design. Totally awesome techno fantasy armor here on this character. Do your duty, the guard says. At once, shock trooper. Come here, little one. Test your puny might against me. Whoa, you're a big kitty cat, Superman says. And like everything else on Apocalypse, about 10 times faster than I'd expect, he thinks to himself. So, again, these are, when you're on Apocalypse, when you're on New Genesis, these are, every denizen is a new god. They are more than human. So Superman is trying to get used to that. So they have a pretty cool fight here. And Superman eventually is going to prevail. And when he does tear the pacifier armor open, there's this cool looking slug character in it. And oh, this is a great ad with a pair of artwork here for the New Outsiders Baxter title coming in March. Batman's back, I guess. It's going to be a storyline on the Outsiders. So this this slug-like creature bursts from the shattered armor and tries to overwhelm Superman. And he thinks to himself, blasted thing's some kind of psychic parasite. It's tapping into my nervous system, taking control of my motor reflexes. So it's manipulating my flying power, carrying us up, can't stop it. So it's forcing him to fly into this furnace, and he's wondering if even he can survive the heat. And they go careening down in, and here Darkseid is laughing, watching and laughing. So maybe Darkseid figured out that that was indeed Superman somehow. And he's really enjoying himself here, watching as they fling themselves into the furnace. And it says it's going to be continued in the Adventures of Superman on sale in 1 week. So that was the Jerry Ordway title. There were 3 Superman titles: Adventures, Superman, and Action Comics was the team-up title. And Adventures was done by Ordway. So yeah, that was a brief look at Superman 3 and a full look at Legends number 5. And I do appreciate you watching. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, like and subscribe. And I will bring you Legend 6 and other books soon. Take care. This has been Scott Reads Comics.